Well, Chris Klieman officially retired today from K-State. Is Collin Klein the next guy? Certainly appears so. We'll tell you all about it coming up next. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome into a live edition of Three Ma. I'm John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. Potentially unexpected show for some of you guys today. How was everybody's Wednesday? Just a nice, quiet Wednesday, right? Nothing really going on today except for Chris Klieman retiring. That has been officially announced at K-State. We'll talk about the Collin Klein piece of this. I will just say, well, first, I will tell you, the Manhattan Mercury reported that Collin Klein was in line to be the next guy, the next head coach here at K-State. I know Gene Taylor just had a press conference. There was a press conference at 4 o'clock with Taylor Bratt, Chris Klieman, and Gene Taylor. Gene Taylor said at the press conference he has not talked to Collin Klein or anybody. I think he said he forgot his number or something. As a show, we are very confident that Collin Klein will be the next head coach at K-State. But we do want to spend a lot of time talking about Chris Klieman here and his legacy and everything he has meant at K-State. And all that's going to be brought to you by our good friends at Holiday Distillery in the Discord today, which has been a great place to be over the last couple of days. You guys might have been a little tipped off on some of this stuff at patreon.com/3ma yesterday if you were on the Discord. So I would highly encourage joining right now. But we were, Cole, getting some nice pictures sent to us of people who were drinking celebratory Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon, which Cole is showing at the camera right now.
Yep. I've got some right now to celebrate Chris Klieman's career for everything that he did at Kansas State, which we'll hit on as well. And obviously the prodigal son coming home and Collin Klein. But, you know, a toast for sure to what Chris Klieman did at Kansas State and a significant impact on this football program and this university.
Somebody get Chris Klieman a bottle of Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon. I mean, I know that he said he was going to go have a beer after the Colorado game, but, you know, maybe he does seem like more of a beer guy. I know Gene's more of a beer guy. We could get him some Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon or 360 vodka, you know, either one. All right. So welcome in. DY, how was the presser? How was Veneer?
It was surreal. That's how I would say it's surreal. Obviously, you get like the Kansas State, everybody like a who's who of Kansas State there, dignitary wise, current coaches, past coaches. No Bill Snyder, but just about everyone else was there. And I guess I would say that is probably the most. He said he was at peace, and I believed it. That was the most relieved and comfortable that Chris Klieman has felt in years to me.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. I loved the Klieman press conference part of that. Like, he did seem relaxed. I actually kind of love that he just went up there and was like, I'm not taking questions. I'll give you guys my statement, and then I'm just out. I'm going to walk out of the room. Like, see you later. I was like, hey, man, you earned it, homie. Like, that's cool.
He didn't even stay for Gene's part. He's like, I'm out.
No, gave Gene a hug and was like, all right, see you later. Have fun dealing with the questions, buddy. That was pretty funny. But my favorite thing that I loved about that, because Klieman is such a humble guy. He's a good human being, man. I know we've been critical throughout the football season, and it's hard, man. It really did weigh on me throughout the year. I'm like, I respect the guy so much. I think he is a better human being than I am, for sure. And I aspire to be a human being like him. And that came across, I think, during that press conference. But he's such a humble guy. But he let out. He was like, look, I followed Craig Bull at North Dakota State, who had won 3 straight national championships before me. Then I came and won 4 or 5. And then he was like, and then I came to K-State and I had to follow who I think is the greatest college football coach in history in Bill Snyder. He was like, I think I did a pretty damn good job with that. I was like, yeah, dude, talk your ish, Chris. Talk your ish, man. You deserve that opportunity to do it. You did do a damn good job with it. And I was glad that he got a nice little mic drop moment.
Yeah, he deserved that. He had it going out at the right time plays into that, I think.
Yeah, no, he's beloved in the industry. He's beloved by his players. He's a good person. I'd be lying if it didn't weigh on me a little bit as I was watching that press conference and hearing him speak and not getting a little emotional myself and feeling a little bit bad for, how we've talked about him, how I've specifically talked about him over the last few weeks and kind of self-reflecting on that, which was really centered around the future and what I aspired this program to be, but not on the accomplishments of what Chris Klieman had already done and not being grateful and appreciative for that. And I know we said it on the YouTube post-game show for the Utah game. Like, I am incredibly grateful for what Klieman did. And I know we'll talk about this, but for all the criticism for the press conferences and stuff over the last couple of weeks that I brought on, he handled that incredibly well today. And just leaving the room, not taking questions, I'm completely fine with how he handled that. I thought he did a really nice job. And, the thing that Chris Klieman, as we said on the post-game YouTube show for Utah, the thing that Chris Klieman did at Kansas State was he came from the FCS following a legend, following who we view as the greatest football coach in the history of college football, definitely the greatest turnaround in the history of college football. And he did a damn good job. He proved that somebody other than Bill Snyder can have success at Kansas State football. That is no easy task. He is the only other coach that won at Kansas State. And he not only won, but he delivered a Big 12 championship. And so for that, incredibly grateful for all that he did. He is a good person. He is liked by everybody. It was more, all the criticism I had was more about where does this go in the future and is he necessarily the right guy? And I have a lot of respect for him stepping down at this time and recognizing, and self-reflecting that he wants to spend more time with his family and allowing Kansas State to make the move to Collin Klein. I have a ton of appreciation for that.
Too often in this business, coaches wear out their welcome or you stay a little too long. Like, how many coaches really go out on their own terms at the right time? Even the great ones struggle with that. Coach Snyder didn't get that, let's be honest. But Coach Klieman just pulled it off. And like I said, it rarely happens. Even the legends, it rarely happens. Nick Saban just did it, I guess. But like, most people don't get to go out on their own terms when they want to and at the right time with their legacy still intact. I'm pretty sure Bob Stoops kind of got forced out too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I had that question. I had so many people asking me, like, there's like, because I think so many people outside of, unless you're like a hyper super fan of K-State or like working in it like we are, I can see how it was pretty jarring to see Chris Klieman. How old is Klieman? He's under 60, right? 58. Yeah, to see a 58-year-old head coach who has been as successful as he has just retire. So I was having all these people ask me, like, was he like forced out or something? I'm like, did you watch the Utah press conference? What his boss did there? And like, no, he did not. He did not get forced out. I mean, I can assure you of that. That's not what this was. This is him. And if you're reading into, again, he didn't answer questions, but if you're reading into what was said by Gene Taylor, then it sure sounds like a lot of this is about the current landscape of college sports and what's going on, right? So that seems to be about as much explanation as we got as to what exactly is the reasoning behind this. Maybe at some point we'll get more of that from Chris Klieman. I don't know. I'm sure he'll sit down with somebody and do a more revelatory interview at some point in all of this. People had also, asked about are there health problems or anything like that. I don't know. There's maybe a little bit of a reference in the press conference to just some stress. He talked about choosing his family over him for the first time ever. So I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on reasoning behind this happening right now.
Yeah, I do think it's the new era. I mean, even in his press conference before announcing his retirement, how many times has he expressed just utter disdain for the fact that there is a roster limit of now 105 players? Like, the new era, I think, pisses him off a little bit, and he thinks that it should be changed. But I think he's a little bit different than the coaches of the old guard and why they have left. I think some of them just didn't think players should be paid at all and were pissed off about it in general. I don't really think Klieman has a problem with transfer portal or player movement. I don't really think Chris Klieman has a problem with players getting paid. I think he has a problem with there really not be any enforcement or regulations, so to speak, and it's a free for all. I think he has a little bit of an issue with that, and I think he really what gets to him the most is the fact that they forced him to cut 30 players and up in their lives, so to speak, in a way, several months ago, and I don't think he's really forgiven anyone in charge for having to do that. He called it the worst days of his coaching career. So I think that's what his issues are more than anything else. Like I think his complaints about the new era of college sports is a little bit different than most of the old guard. What I would say is, though, people are like, man, he's only 58 and he's retiring from college coaching. Because of how fast and how much has changed in college sports, I'm not sure 58 is that young in college coaching anymore. I think that's starting to become an older age.
Well, because think about the demand, like the time demands.
Yeah, I think that's what the part where he said I could put my family first again, that really rang pretty significant for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's had a kid that's been playing college football, right? You know, he's talked about having to miss games, like, but even beyond that, it's just the calendar throughout the year. I mean, you just have there are no breaks, there are no gaps. You got to always be recruiting your roster. The transfer portal has totally changed all of that. I mean, we just had National Signing Day today, and it's like nobody really cares that much about it anymore, but there's still that. And then the portal, always having to be hyper vigilant of who's happy, you know, who's getting more. Now you have you need a GM to manage the money side of it. Like Chris Klieman's a ball coach, man. He wants to coach football. He does not want to deal with all that other stuff that goes along with it. And so I think you're going to see, as we're in this new era, a new archetype of like what coach is going to thrive in this era. And that's not what Chris Klieman is. I mean, we've talked about too, he's not a guy that loves to do, you know, like going on catbacker tour sort of events, speaking engagements, stuff like that. Like that's not really his jam. He wants to sit back and coach football. And it was just turning into more and more of stuff that is not that.
Absolutely. And a calendar, I think, plays into it. Cole, you could come in here, but like I think a lot of coaches have frustrations with the calendar in the way things are separated. For instance, we're in the Big 12, so I'll use the Big 12, for instance. BYU and Texas Tech play a Big 12 championship game in 3 days, and they have signing day today to navigate like that.
Well, yeah, BYU, that is not even the only thing they had to navigate. Both coaches just signed extensions, and Kalani Sitake had to decide between Penn State and BYU this week.
Yeah, it's pretty a bizarre world that we're living in with the calendar. Some of it is just, dude, the academic calendar is really an issue, to be honest.
Yeah, you know, I just wonder, because, I mean, we'll get into this too, guys, but I just wonder, you know, entering the weekend, there was no doubt in our mind, based off the information that we had, that Chris Klieman was returning to be the head coach at Kansas State next year. Mm-hmm. And it felt like this suddenly pivoted and reversed course over the last really 48 to 72 hours since the Colorado game. And there was a change.
Unless you're a lip reader, right? Do people really think he told Coach Prime immediately after the game? Like,
I mean, look.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I did see some people, you know, commenting on that. Look, it was a quick pivot, though, based off what we had heard. And I just wonder, as he got the season wrapped up, if he just looked at things and reflected and was like, do I really have the energy and the capacity to deal with the transfer portal, retaining all my guys during bowl prep and all of that, NIL, and potentially having to fire coaches? Because let's be honest, he was likely going to need to move on from some of his friends that are on the staff. And that's a lot to put on his plate in just this 30-day period. And I wonder if he was just like, you know what, as he sat down and he talked with his wife, Rhonda, and his family and his friends and people he's close to in the industry, if he just decided this is the time to do it. You know, he's heard clearly the whispers of Kansas State fans wanting Collin Klein as well. And he just made the decision to ultimately step away. And what I really appreciated about it, guys, is he did it quickly. He didn't drag this out into mid-December. You know, he made the decision shortly after the Colorado game. And so Kansas State can quickly get a move on things, get the next coach in place, who we know that is, get the portal stuff in place, retain your roster as best you can. I have a great deal of appreciation that he looked out for the best interests of Kansas State here.
Definitely
did this. So I am grateful for that, because a lot of guys wouldn't have done that. Just look at the spectacle we watched with Lane Kiffin.
I think he definitely did, because I think he had Collin Klein in mind as his successor, and it was like, well, he's still available. So, and I think he felt compelled to get through signing day too for Kansas State. Obviously, he didn't really get the luxury of doing that. But.
That's unfortunate, but just crazy day, crazy last really 24 hours is, the rumbling started coming in of what was transpiring. And DY, you had to ask yourself numerous times in the group text, is this really happening? Like, is this real? Because it did. It felt like to all of us, I think.
We were kind of working on it together. It became a lot more real. And I had to step away and have dinner with family last night. And the last thing I sent to you guys was a text that started to allude to this being happening. I get back 3 hours later to my phone and like, okay, so what I sent you was right.
Well, that's what, it was like DY and I both got. DY had a little something, and then I got a little something, and we're trying to piece it all together. We're like, wait, hold up. And we're like, we know this is something big. Something big's up. And then, DY goes to dinner. Yeah, we were a little off at first. But DY goes to dinner, and then, like, everything came through, and we were like, oh, bleep. Like, okay, yeah, this is what's – and then it went on. We're just talking and talking and talking for, like, an hour and a half. But it DY says nothing. DY's just radio silent. And we were like, is DY, this is like, the group chat's typically pretty lively. We're all pretty active in it. And it just goes dead silent from DY when the bombshell news comes out. We were like, what is he reporting this right now? Is he cutting us out? Like, what happened? Did he pass out? Like, what I was running through all these scenarios in my head as to what happened to you, DY. And then you came back and you were just like, oh, just having dinner.
Yeah. That's but and I'm the one that like jump started that conversation, but I was like, well, I didn't think we were going to get that much that quickly. And then even when I went to bed last night, I didn't think it was going to break today. And
you knew it was going to break today.
I probably had enough to do it tomorrow, but I figured everyone would kind of like follow what I kind of followed and what you had followed. We're thinking we're going to get to a signing day first.
Well, yeah. I mean, so that's, yes, just to point out to everybody, like, because there were so many questions happening about all this. And like, is this real? Is this real? Because it's reported a little bit differently from your Pete Thamels, Pete Nakos, like the national guys than it was from the Manhattan Mercury. And by the way, TexAgs, which is a Texas A&M fan site. But like Billy Lucci, who runs that, he's one of the OGs out there. Like that guy runs probably the best fan site in the game. He's legit. There's a lot of really in-depth reporting at Texas A&M about not only Collin being the guy, but that he was close to taking the USF job when this happened. Maybe we'll save more of that conversation for when Collin becomes actually official here. But yeah, anyway, there's a lot to tackle when it comes to how everything with all of that went
down.
Yeah. Okay, well, do we want to take a break? What do we want to do here? What are we doing for the top storyline on this, by the way?
I love that we're dissecting it on air. I don't know. That's a great question.
To be honest, I can even talk about, not for this top storyline, talk about Klieman a little bit more if you want.
It needs to be Klieman. It needs to be Klieman. Yeah, look, guys, we're doing this on the fly, man. We had to work a day job today. I was like, dude, am I supposed to try and work today? But yeah,
we can get to the hiring part of it too. I think we can do both. What I would say is another tidbit of Klieman's career that's pretty impressive. In just 7 seasons as a head coach, I think he has 3 no-doubter Ring of Honor recipients, and 4 if you include himself, which I know is a discussion that we've had.
I think he should. You know what? We'll make that the top storyline, DY, because I think we're all in agreement there. I think we're all in agreement there that he should be. Okay, so we'll take a break and come back and get into that.
What's up, guys? It is Benny Heiss, KCSN betting analyst, and Missouri. Your moment is finally here. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is now live right here in the state. So now you can make every game so much more exciting with same-game parlays, money lines, props, and more, all from your phone, and it's all safe, secure, and easy to use. And listen, we know Fans in the state of Missouri know game day, whether it's the tailgates, the noise, the passion. And now with DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bring that same energy to every snap, every touchdown, and every win. Right now, new Missouri customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. There's no waiting, no nonsense, just pure action powered by America's top-rated sportsbook app. So here's what you do. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code KCSN. Code KCSN. Remember, new Missouri customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. That's code KCSN. The crown is yours in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Remember, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook. Bonus bets expire 7 days after they're issued. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, please see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
Okay. I'm glad that Nick put this in the chat. Everybody who's here, if you are not a subscriber to the channel, please make sure and subscribe, like the video. All of that stuff definitely helps us. So thank you to everybody who's joining us here. If you're new and checking this out for the first time, if you are wanting more, you can go to patreon.com/3maw and sign up for not only some Patreon bonus episodes, but you will most importantly get access to the Discord, which I will just say, not only were you getting, we did a pretty good little tease job starting at about like 5 o'clock yesterday to everybody there. But there are members of our Discord, Cole, who called their shot on this, like, I don't know, 4 months ago. I mean, and they got shouted down by people like me telling them that they were wish casting, but they were right the entire time.
Someone said, yeah. There's a comment that says, yeah, that pissed me off.
John loves to use the term wish casting. He used it on me with PJ Haggerty when I was saying this that he was coming to Kansas State. He said it about Chris Klieman retiring. I believe he might have said it when Coleman Hawkins was coming into the fold.
No, PJ Haggerty was the birth of wish casting. I don't think I knew what wish casting was before.
Well, I call it.
I wish Coleman Hawkins didn't come. How about that?
Yeah, no, I wish that too. I call it man-basting, guys. I often will find myself forecasting optimistic news that comes into fruition. Sometimes
what is man casting? Man casting. I don't like man basting.
I thought he said man blasting, and I was like, oof.
Oh, okay, DY, that's inappropriate. We, man, well, I don't know. Man casting does sound better because, Manning cast, I guess. But I was trying to get the B in there for the last name in honor of Manbeck as well. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm the one that often is trying to. But John and you, DY, bullied me into giving up hope on any changes. And I'd given up. Frankly, I fully expected, and we base this off of information.
The comments are hilarious. It says, Cole, that sounds like something that you limit your radius around elementary schools.
Okay. All right. You guys are so inappropriate.
This is a DY thing. This isn't me. I want no part of this.
Yeah. But based off information that we had received, yes, we fully expected Chris Klieman to be back. We had very credible information on this that he was planning to come back. And so the fact that the decision changed, that was a wild last 48 hours and how this whole thing transpired. I think a lot of people were blindsided by this.
Right.
So
I also think I also think it's just how college coaches operate. They're kind of a different type of human beings, right? Well, did you guys hear about like when Nick Saban retired last year? He announced his retirement and told people like in the afternoon. The morning of him announcing his retirement, he was interviewing coaches for the next season to be on his staff. Like they just coach up into the last second of when they're not going to coach. They're like, all right, yeah, I'll retire.
Well,
like,
here's one other point that I would make about Klieman just being a grade A human being and somebody who cared about K-State and did it the right way for K-State is like, I know we mentioned, hey, it was signing day. And like, obviously he was there. They weren't anticipating this breaking. But to hear the way he was talking, like there was that clip going around where he said, how exactly he said, he's like, your lives are going to be touched by a bunch of different people while you're here. I just thought he did a great job of like laying out a case for a nearly impossible situation. which is you're trying to tell this kid, hey, sign with my school. Oh, by the way, I am retiring. I was going to hide that from you, but now the Manhattan Mercury has reported it, so I can't. But you should stay with K-State. And they still signed, 19 kids today? So 23 kids. So Chris Klieman, man, like the way he was doing that, I was like, one, that's a guy who knows what he's doing. That's a guy who has done this before. And that's a guy who cares about this university, man, and trying to see it through to get Collin Klein a jump start with whatever he can with this class. So I appreciated that a ton from him too today.
There's a question that said, did heavy hitters force it? No, this was just a Klieman decision. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. He made the decision on his own. Nobody pressured. And you saw the emotion from Gene Taylor today. Like
Gene even admitted he tried to talk him out of it.
There was no way that Gene Taylor was trying to pressure him in. And no, donors were not calling for Chris Klieman to step down. That wasn't transpiring. He made this decision after talking to family and friends. So, you know, there was no pressure internally or from, major players.
It was a good timing. And now he can also, I don't know if Colby's still playing college football. One of his sons, he was at Kansas Wesleyan. And I don't know if he's still playing or if he graduated, but he can go back to Fargo and watch Devin coach North Dakota State too.
Yeah, and hardly asks in the chat, did the Utah loss change the direction? I don't like that. I get it. The press conference was unique and he was clearly very emotional there in that setting. But we had heard even up to like Thursday of last week that he fully planned on coming back before.
Yeah.
So I don't think he was thinking in the press conference in the moment at Utah when he was emotional that, hey, I'm retiring.
Yeah, that press conference does, with now knowing what we now know, that it does make you think a little, I would say.
Well, I mean, I had the thought today. I was like you guys said, I think we were really confident in the source that we were getting info from on like expecting him back. But I was like, I don't know, maybe we got played a little bit, maybe from some end, whether it was directly or indirectly, maybe everybody got played a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. And like I said, these college coaches, they're wired differently. Like, even if they think they might retire still and are thinking about it, they just keep working until it's literally not time to work anymore.
Yeah. Well, all right, let's get to the top storyline brought to you by our good friends at Elenco. For all your home improvement needs, go to elencohome.com, ALENCO home.com. I thought it was a great discussion brought up by somebody talking to us today. Hello, Harambe. I thought it was a great discussion that was brought up. Is Chris Klieman a Ring of Honor recipient? Like, is he a guy that's going to go up into the Ring of Honor? And I think our general consensus in the group chat was like, absolutely. I mean, you've won, I think it's 3 conference titles, though. Cole, earlier you said Klieman was the only other guy to win other than Bill Snyder here. And I was going to say, I apologize to the estate of Lynn Pappy Waldorf for the comments that Cole made earlier. I think didn't he win a conference championship? Maybe. I don't know. Anyway.
Oh, Big 12. You can just stipulate Big 12.
At least in the modern era. Yeah. In the modern era, he's won one of 3 conference championships here. And just his role in what he did in proving that somebody other than Bill Snyder can win at a conference championship level here. Like, to me, the more I think about it, I think it's absolutely belongs in the Ring of Honor.
Probably a shoe-in just for, like you said, almost the historical significance of his tenure and what it means to Kansas State on a larger scale. Because now they aren't going to be treated like only one person has ever won there. And not only that, he didn't just win. He went to 6 bowl games or qualified for 6 bowl games in 7 seasons. He won a Big 12. Came sort of close a couple other times. What he did, he's the second best coach in Kansas State football history. And I think that qualifies him for an honor like the Ring of Honor. And not only that, in just 7 seasons, you have, I think, 3 other Ring of Honor guys with him, right? And Deuce Vaughn, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, and Cooper Beebe. I think those 3 are shoo-ins as well. The one I kind of was like is Felix, but then I'm like, man, Felix got Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year 2 times in a row.
I was like twice. Yeah,
was an All-American. He's probably more of a shoe-in than Deuce Vaughn, even though Deuce Vaughn probably meant more to those teams. So, yeah, I don't see a scenario where you can really argue against Chris Klieman, to be quite honest.
Well, maybe the best offensive lineman in school history in Cooper Beebe, and then not
Maybe.
two of the top,
I think he definitely is.
Yeah, two of the top 3 running backs in school history, and DJ Giddens and Deuce Vaughn. You could make a case for DJ Giddens potentially even, 2 1,300-yard seasons, second all time in the school rushing chart, I believe, in a lot of the different categories. So, I mean, they in the NFL draft picks they produced, especially on the defensive side of the ball and in the secondary, when you look at the guys that they brought in the portal and the success they've had getting to the next level, he did a lot of great things. And, 54-34 ultimately at Kansas State. And look, I know I've had frustrations over the 8-win thing, so people will probably laugh that I'm using this as something to elevate Chris Klieman here. Yeah. But when you do self-reflect on this, 5 out of 7 seasons, he won 8 wins or more. And in one of those seasons he didn't, was the pandemic season. So you're really looking at 5 out of 6 seasons he won 8 games or more. He went to a bowl 6 of 7 seasons. And again, the one time he didn't was the pandemic season. He won a Big 12 championship at Kansas State. And the thing that I would say, think about the inherent challenges that Chris Klieman faced. He came from a well-structured, dominant program in the FCS and North Dakota State. And he came to Kansas State and not only followed a legend in Bill Snyder, but he had to deal with a pandemic, the transfer portal rules changes, NIL, all of that. And he adapted to a decent amount, maybe not in the future state of how everything was going to go, but the challenges that he had to face to go to produce the results that he did, it would have been hard enough to follow Bill Snyder. But for him to be able to be successful and face those challenges in doing so is a huge credit to him and his staff and all the people around the program that were able to do it. And so, again, I would just echo a lot of the things that we said already. Incredibly grateful, appreciative, thankful for what Coach Klieman has done here. I do feel bad about the way that I've spoken about it for the last month. But again, that was more focused on the future of Kansas State versus what he'd accomplished in the past. So, shout out to Chris Klieman. Really great job that he did here at Kansas State, and carved the path forward to show to the next person, they're not following in the footsteps of Bill Snyder, but they are following in the footsteps of Chris Klieman, who was a damn good coach at Kansas State. But it's easier to do now than it was when Bill Snyder was the last coach that you were following.
Yeah, I saw Eric's comment there. Yeah, I mean, no, there's not a coach in the Ring of Honor right now. I don't know if there's a specific rule about what they use it for. If you can put a coach there, obviously when, the stadium's named after Bill Snyder, I guess it's you don't need to double up and put him in there in the Ring of Honor. I guess our point with this, I think, would just be he's worthy of that. There should be something up there on the stadium, whatever, something to honor Chris Klieman. I definitely think would be appropriate for sure. I
will say, based on some of the things that I have said about him, and I don't think we ever got personal in what we have said about him. Again, I don't think it was ever personal, but we were pretty critical and pretty sharp in some of our comments about him this year and in the past. And it's not just us, other media, plenty of fans, and how they've treated and said some of the things they've said about Chris Klieman. It would be very easy for him at any point in these 7 years to be an incredible asshole based on how people have treated him at times, including us. And he never once was.
Well, I here's one thing that now looking back on it, I still will stand by the statement that it was starting to feel a little bit like this, but in retrospect of what you just said, how he chose to handle it on the way out, saying that his press conferences were starting to seem kind of Bruce Weber-y for a while there. Now I'm like, well, what did Bruce do on his way out? Bruce did take that moment to do that. He did. He took his shot. And hey, I get it. I get it. Okay. But Chris Klieman did not do that at all. You're right. He completely took the high road.
He takes the high road a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would argue I didn't probably take the high road. I might have made it more personal at various points. I don't know. As I look back and reflect, I saw somebody commented in the chat that were saying nice things because he stepped down. And I think you probably could make that case for me. If Chris Klieman had stayed on another year and went like 4-8 next year or 5-7, and I'm not saying he would have done that, but if he would have, would I be saying the same things right now? Like if Collin Klein had gone and hired at Oklahoma State, right? And K-State doesn't make a bowl next year and they struggle. No, I don't think I'd probably be saying the same thing.
No, we wouldn't. But it takes moments like this for us to realign ourselves too.
Yeah. And so I think part of the discussion here has centered around like Chris Klieman recognized and had the self-awareness and retired, and that we should be appreciative of that. What, DY, is that
the comments here? Cole Manbeck is a low road kind of gentleman. LOL, Cole, you were not even on the low road. You were in a submarine.
Oh, wow. Man, it's like
I try to keep it relatively factual based off numbers and things, but I don't know. Look, that's probably fair criticism.
It's like a wise person once said.
I think it's a little over the top. You do tend to get more critical than others, but I thought you were generally still fair.
All right. Well, you guys are protecting me here. Somebody asked earlier.
I was not about to protect you. I was about to say it's like a wise person once said, they go high, Cole goes low.
It says, does K-State pay out the rest of his contract since he stepped down? No. They would if they fired him without cause. There is no firing here. He retired. With that being said, there will still be kind of some settlement agreed upon for this separation agreement, I guess you would call it, of sorts. I don't know. You guys might know that better, being in the PR world.
Yeah, I mean, they'll settle on some amount of money.
Yeah,
he's gonna get a nice chunk of money on his way out the door, which he should, and he is certainly deserved that. I don't know what it is in the press conference. I think that was asked. I can't remember if it was directly or if he just sort of got to that. But Gene Taylor, said that they hadn't really discussed that. Who knows, but they'll get to it. I don't think it's anything to be too worried about.
No. And if they have, Gene wasn't going to admit it there in that press conference, just like he wasn't going to admit to speaking to Collin Klein.
And frankly, I don't know if that'll ever become public, like what they actually settle on. I mean, they're not required to make that public, are they?
I don't think so, because he's no longer a state employee.
Yeah. Right? So what I would guess is you're probably looking at like 25% of the remaining, buyout. So that would be reasonable. 20 to 25% of what his remaining buyout was, which was, nearly $30 million. So like,
I think we had someone kind of float something around a third, right?
Yeah, it could be that. I mean, we're speculating here. I would guess I think reasonably like between 6, 8, 9 million, somewhere around there, would probably be a reasonable settlement. And look, in the grand scheme of things, guys, that's still pretty reasonable because not only the buyout, and again, they weren't firing Chris Klieman and not saying he deserved that anyways, but like if Collin Klein had gotten a Power 4 head coaching job, which we all thought as of a few weeks ago would happen, he would have had a buyout that was probably north of $15 million in itself. That Kansas State, like nobody was going to hire Collin Klein at the Power 4 level and not put in something to insulate themselves and protect them. The South Florida stuff, somebody had asked earlier about, South Florida, and did that have an impact? And I know, DY, you have some thoughts on this too. My thought is like South Florida wouldn't have had the leverage or the power to put in such a high buyout on Collin Klein to where K-State wouldn't have still been able to get him out of that really quickly and easily. But it still would have been money, kind of lit on fire, essentially, that could have been avoidable if Chris Klieman didn't do what he did. And so as a result, they've saved some money in the long run, probably through this. And not only that, but I would suspect that, Chris Klieman will have made more than what Collin Klein is going to start out as, because Collin Klein was going to be willing to take the South Florida job, but they weren't paying anywhere near a Power 4 job.
You got a comment that says, do you guys plan to talk about Collin Klein at all? The pre-show graphic was literally a picture of Klein with the "He's Coming Home" banner. John, I imagine we'll get to that after the next break.
Yeah, let's take a break and we'll talk about that. Look, we probably should maybe tweak the title and the banner a little bit. Some of this, guys, is that we're trying to plan this well in advance. And earlier today, we hadn't had the press conference with like the denials and everything. I think I was maybe a little taken aback that the denial was so strong at the press conference earlier today. But yes, we will talk about it. Yeah. Okay. Let's take the break. By the way, I will get a new light. Sorry that my light went out today. We're just a mess, man. Get some breaking news on us. Nobody can handle anything. And we'll be back in just a moment.
My name is Terrell Jolly. A lot of people call me TJ, founder and CEO of Integrity Capital Management. So Integrity Capital Management originally started out as a property management firm, but we slowly transitioned to what is described as an incremental development firm that's focused on situational housing. I know most people say affordable, but we believe in creating housing for people that are actually in need and built to the end user. I believe everyone needs a home because when you have home, you have hope. The reality is that when you're building a business, one thing you don't think about is like what a true banking relationship means. And, I had the honor and privilege of meeting Debbie early on in my career when I was just trying to get going. And as a small business, it's really challenging at times because people don't understand the concept or not believe the longevity because you're just getting started. But Debbie was willing to take a chance on me, be patient with me. I almost look at it like a grassroots initiative. She's seen and believe what I'm about. Anybody that's really true about their business and want to get some things done, I would definitely trust hands down Emprise because Deb's team, along with Aaron and Jackie and all the amazing people that work behind the scenes, even from the treasury side, I would say, hey, give them an opportunity because you won't be disappointed and you will actually be in hands that actually somebody care and that will see you from start to finish.
All right, we are back here on 3MAW. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please do like and subscribe. If you're here for the first time, welcome. We're always talking about the cats here on this channel, so make sure you do like and subscribe. We had questions about Patreon earlier. Yes, it is $5 a month to join our Patreon, but you can get bonus episodes and access to our Discord server, which is that's definitely the way to go. Definitely the way to go. Lots of fun happening over on the Discord, patreon.com/3MAW. So we told you at the beginning of the show that we are aware, obviously, of everything that has been said today about Collin Klein, whether it seems to confirm the idea that he's the next coach or go against it, which was really just Gene Taylor at the press conference. I guess just to recap, the day starts. I mean, look, again, we were all sitting here like wondering how this was going to break, if it was going to break. I felt like there was enough chatter about it last night that it was going to break at some point today, even though they clearly didn't want it to because of National Signing Day. The Manhattan Mercury put out a report stating both things, that Chris Klieman was retiring and that Collin Klein was lined up to be the next guy. Then you have the national guys like your Pete Thamel, your Pete Nakos at On3. They report Chris Klieman retiring and that either in some people worded it like Collin Klein's the top target. There was no saying that like a deal is done. And I don't think that we're sitting here telling you right now we think that there's like necessarily ink on paper yet, but we are very confident that Collin Klein is going to be the next guy. The other thing that happened was the Texags reporting on this, which is Texas A&M fan site that we mentioned earlier, got really into the weeds about Collin Klein being in the mix at USF, almost getting the Oklahoma State job, being close to signing a deal with USF when K-State then contacted him. I don't know, someone tweeted it. I think it's probably from Texags Premium, so I really probably shouldn't direct you to the screenshot of it that's on there. But it was really detailed reporting from Billy Lucci, who's one of the best in the game that reports for Texas A&M, saying that, yeah, Collin Klein is going to take the K-State job. So all that to say, that's what's out there. What we can tell you as a show is we are very, very confident Collin Klein is going to be the coach. Gene Taylor was in an awkward position. Cole and I were just talking about this. That's not a position. Let's see what DY says about this. That's not a position that like athletic directors find themselves in very often. Like there are lots of coaching changes, but how often does it set up that it's like you have a coach retiring and then you're making the switch just like that because you already had the guy like right there. And then you have a press conference where you're trying to let the coach have his day and shine. And there have been all these reports. So of course the reporters are going to ask about it. Like that was a really, a new, interesting situation that I don't think guys typically have. So I would say he had to say something to that effect. He couldn't come out and just be like, yeah, he's going to be the guy, I think, at that point, for a number of reasons.
Yeah. I think the job has to be posted for 48 hours in the state of Kansas. If I have that right, I don't know. It's along those lines, like legal and HR related, and stuff of that nature is what I would say. But you're right. ADs don't typically find themselves in that because, one, you usually don't have guys calling it a career on their own terms. That's very rare to do. So when they do, then they're going to have this appropriate send off of a press conference. And when that happens, and when they do, they typically don't have a slam dunk hire that everyone knows is going to be the next head coach. So he was put in an impossible situation. He probably overdid it with the corny jokes, like not having the number, but that's Gene Taylor. He's kind of corny. And guess what? You're about to hire a head coach that's pretty corny himself. So
we're just taking out everybody.
Well, I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, you've covered Collin Klein press conferences? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Back when he was at DY, I covered Collin Klein press conferences when he was a player. All right.
Yeah. Well, I did it as an offensive coordinator, and I love Collin Klein, and I'm glad he's coming, but that is not an entertaining press conference.
DY, could you get Gene Collins' number just so we can start the communication channel? So Harambe's asking.
I bet he has Clint Dowdle's number.
Yeah, Harambe's asking. We just heard what Fitz just said. I don't know what Fitz said. Harambe, you want to put it in the chat? Unless it might be premium, so maybe you don't.
Yeah, don't. Let's not.
Unless he tweeted it or something.
Let's do our show. Let's do our show.
Otherwise, message me, Harambe. Oh gosh, darn it, Harambe got me with the joke.
I also see maybe DY is the one who's corny. Very, very true. I'm not really. I don't have good jokes. So
Cole, I tried to save you, man. I tried to save you. I
can't believe I bit on that. He's so good. Classic Harambe. You know, the only reason I bit on that, Harambe, is because you've been gone from the Discord for a couple of weeks, and I'm rusty right now. So come back, and I wouldn't have fallen for that joke. Anyways.
I think Collin Klein gets announced as early as tomorrow, and the latest is Friday. Is my perception. It was that all along, and talking to someone immediately after the press conference kind of confirmed that intuition.
When we were first hearing about it, the way it was first told to me was before we even knew what it was that there's big news coming. You'll like it, and it's going to happen by the end of the week. So. Yeah.
Because they also want the introductory press conference to be done before next week when Collin has to start preparing for the opponent. Texas A&M is about to find out who they are going to play on Sunday.
That's an important distinction here. That is a part of the Texags reporting on the A&M side. Collin Klein is going to stay with Texas A&M through the playoff. So he's going to be coaching playoff games.
Yes, and on the Kansas State side, I just assumed, and we were told that Chris Klieman would be coaching in the bowl game. They will let that up to the players. I'm all of a sudden getting strong indications that they might not even go to the bowl game at all.
Well, that's
kind of what it sounded like today, was that they might not play a bowl at all. We got our wish, guys. We bullied them out of a bowl game.
Okay, well, I mean, I would like to see him play in a bowl game still, but, you know,
I think that would be the appropriate send-off for Klieman. So I was actually a little bit surprised that wasn't like the intention or the plan just yet.
Well, they could meet with the players tomorrow, and the players could be like, we want to give you one last game, Coach Klieman, because he's beloved in that locker room. There are probably a lot of guys that would lay it on the line for him and be like,
there is. I also think there's plenty that probably just want to.
There no doubt is.
They want to get to the business of their own careers too.
Yes, there undoubtedly is. So it'll depend on the outcome of that meeting. With a coaching change, it's a unique situation. Your head coach isn't going to be, you know, your coach beyond the bowl game. I'd like to see him play it for Chris Klieman and give him a send-off. But I understand if that's not what transpires and they all just move on. And I'm okay with whatever is decided. So there may not be a bowl game. But we'll see what ultimately is decided. With Collin Klein, there's a lot of things to discuss in terms of, what's going to transpire there and why this is such an amazing fit. And we'll get into more of that. We're going to have a lot more content. We're going to talk about his coaching staff and speculate on names that could be on there too. I know DY, you've already pulled together kind of a list of potential guys, and I'm doing the same thing of who could potentially be on his staff, and we can highlight that on future shows as well. But, I've seen some people still nervous in the chat. Like, Collin Klein's going to be the head coach at Kansas State, folks. So don't worry about it. It's going to come out. And like DY said, it'll probably happen before end of this week, and you'll all be able to rest easy. So it's going to be exciting to see the impact that has. It is John, you and I were talking, and DY, you've been part of this too, but it is the unifying hire that brings everybody together in a time of strife when, I think some of us have all been bickering back and forth. I'm yelling at John on a show about, 4-game winning streak versus 5. And, we're starting to fight. Now we're all going to be unified. We're all happy together. What I'm really saying here is that the donor money that's going to come forward as a result of this, and the fan base as well, is going to be significant. Collin Klein's going to have a lot of things at his disposal. Like, I know Gene Taylor had his press conference today, and the very first thing he started off with was on the state of college athletics. And, I didn't like that, and I don't want to spend much time on it. But, like, we know that that's going to be a direction K-State's going to have to head down here when you get a guy like Collin Klein, who has a lot of ambitions and aspirations.
He talked out both sides of his mouth a little bit on that front anyway.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Cole and I's point would be we're about to hammer home this point, though. Like, hey, this is a hire that can galvanize donors and all the money. And BYU, it just got reported by your colleague, DY Pete Nakos at On3. They're committing to an extra 10 to 15 mil above the rev share cap, which that ain't all going to be fair market value. I got breaking news for you. Texas Tech's not following that. They're the two teams playing in the conference championship. So I don't love stepping up there and just being like, well, the whole state of this is screwed. And I text all my buddies in the Big 12. I mean, yeah, they might be they might be liking that tweet in there, but some of them are then going behind your back and raising the money to do it. So if you want to compete with them, you got to do it. So yeah, it's a little like, can we enjoy something that the fans are going to be excited about here without having to comment on the state?
I'd rather him not go down that road, and I don't think he should have gone down that road. And I think ultimately he's going to be doing the same, despite what he just said there, at least until they can maybe get. I don't think they'll ever get to a point where they want to, but I didn't like that he said that. I really didn't, but I do think he did that almost because it was like a feelings thing because of one of his, or maybe his best friend, leaving the business because of that.
Well, here's the thing. I understand his feelings on that because we know that it is a part of the totality of the atmosphere, as we talked about earlier, is like why Chris Klieman in part is leaving, the totality of what college sports has become. So he's going to have feelings over that. He's also a lifelong college admin that's done things a certain way and has been a respectable dude about it throughout his career. And so he doesn't like where the sport is at. And anybody, like, look, none of us do like where it's at. I think the difference is we're all like, hey, we want to compete no matter what the rules are. So like, let's figure it out and move forward. Whereas Gene Taylor, who's toward the back end of his career here, is more like, no, like I see this problem in a place that I've worked for as long as I have in a space that I love. And I see some of my friends leaving. And now one of my absolute best friends who works for me is leaving because of it. I understand his feelings. I just wish for the greater good, we wouldn't be doing that with a microphone in front of us at this point, but it is what it is. On Collin, Cole, this is the deal. We'll have plenty more shows to talk more about Collin when it becomes official, but this is a unifying hire that will galvanize donors. Because what person in this fan base, whether we're talking about like big hitter donors or whether we're talking about ground level people on Twitter or just your average fan at the game, who doesn't love and support Collin Klein? Like sometimes these hires, people will talk about, oh, why don't we bring back Jordy Nelson to be a receivers coach or Terrence Newman to be a DBs coach or whatever, and sometimes like, it's like, look, guys, I love them, but I don't know if that's the guy. Collin Klein is killing it in the SEC as an offensive coordinator. He's about to coach in the college football playoff. Like it satisfies both. The way I phrased it earlier, it satisfies your hyper online, super aggressive K-State super fans, and it satisfies your proud of the house we built K-State fans and everybody in between. That's what this hire does. So it galvanizes your fan base, galvanizes donors. K-State can throw its best shot behind getting this football thing as right as possible with a guy like Collin Klein there, because everybody will want to step up and support. And I think Collin can even help pull the athletic department along to be more willing to do some of the things that it really takes. And the athletic department, I think, desperately needs that right now, because Collin is going to be coming from, hey, man, I've been at Texas A&M for 2 years. Not only is that the SEC, who is more desperate out there to win than Texas A&M? They paid Jimbo Fisher, $70 million to go away? Those guys want to win badly, and they have more resources than almost anybody out there. And Collin has seen that up close and personal. Now he can bring that to K-State and hopefully be stern about demanding like what he needs to win, at least at like a Big 12 championship level here. And I think that is so important for this athletic department right now.
Yeah. I mean, Gene Taylor admitted when asked about it in the press conference about his future that he has weighed retirement himself. I think he joked like every time he goes to I think he said they bought a new house in Arizona, and every time he's out there, he's like, why don't I just stay here? So he's considering that. I don't know that he's absolutely done, let's say, like 4 or 5 months from now, but I don't think he's going to last much longer than, I'll say, 1.5 years, 2 years is what I would say tops. My point is, with all of this, like, Gene Taylor is not going to be the AD for the majority of Collin Klein's tenure as head coach at Kansas State. That's likely going to be somebody else anyways.
Yeah, but what Collin does is Collin makes Gene Taylor and the entire athletic department's life easier, right? Because
or worse, because they're going to have to actually work their asses off.
Well, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of, based off just early I feel like a lot of money is just going to come forward willingly. You're right. I would say that I think Collin Klein is kind of like Jerome Tang in that he's going to be like, let's keep the foot on the gas at all times here. There's no doubt. I mean, when he left Kansas State to go to Texas A&M, like a lot of the conversation and dialogue as they were trying to keep him at Kansas State was centered around not really what Collin Klein was getting paid, but really about all the things like Collin wanted Kansas State to be, more forward thinking and innovative in the NIL space and, expanding the coaching staff and investing more into the football program. And he just experienced that at Texas A&M. So there's no doubt he's going to have expectations that at Kansas State, and that's got to have been part of the conversation already with them, that they're going to meet a lot of his expectations for a large salary pool for his assistant coaches. That's probably going to be substantially larger than what Chris Klieman had. They're going to meet his needs for NIL, et cetera, to where they can be competitive with their peers in the Big 12. So I think all of that is going to come to fruition. And to what John's point was, like, he had to spend 2 years. Not only did he win a Big 12 championship at Kansas State, and he produced some elite offenses at Kansas State. I mean, Kansas State was 10th in the FEI rankings nationally in offense in 2023. When he left, they were 18th in 2022. And now he's got the number 12 offense in the FEI at Texas A&M. This is a guy, though, that's going to come in. He's going to draw in younger assistant coaches as well. They're going to be hungry. They're going to hit the pavement when it comes to recruiting. They're going to be innovative in how they do things. I can't say for a fact Collin Klein's going to be an absolute slam dunk. We don't know if he's going to work out necessarily as a head coach, but him being under Mike Elko for 2 years in that program and being such a key cog and watching how this thing unfolded to getting them to an 11-0 start at Texas A&M and getting them into the college football playoff, a program that's really, frankly, been somewhat irrelevant outside of having a lot of money for quite some time. I mean, they were going for their first conference title since that terrible year. For all of that, to have that experience that Collin Klein has gone through and to be around one of the most fanatical fan bases in college football. I mean, those people are crazy in College Station. Like, he is prepared his career has gotten him to this point. It was all braced for a vision of where he would be ultimately. He left Kansas State. He's built his coaching network, et cetera. And now over the last 4 years as an offensive coordinator at Kansas State and Texas A&M, I believe he is ready for this job and for this opportunity to take K-State to the next level. And boy, are we eager to see it unfold. It is going to be an exciting time.
Yes, it is. I saw a comment in there about Texas A&M. I think the comment about Texas A&M hasn't been that good actually underscores our point more. Like Collin came in under Mike Elko. Mike Elko's done a hell of a job the last 2 years, and they've been better than arguably have almost ever been this year. Because Mike Elko, that's one. It's not just he sees how it works when you're trying to spend with the total top dogs at a place like A&M, which they spend with the best of them. But he's also seeing how a really good coach at a high level does it. Like Mike Elko is one of those guys that has the respect of a ton of people across the college football world. That he had that clip go viral recently. I'm trying to remember what he was talking about. It was he was talking about how he has to always be temperamentally kind of the opposite of what his team is. If they're all fired up, he has to kind of bring them back down to earth. And if they don't have energy, he's like, I've actually got to be the opposite then and raise them back up. And you had a lot of people around like, this is a dude who gets it, man. So I think that's an underrated thing to sell here too, is like he's learned under a terrific head coach in Mike Elko, who is doing things at A&M that haven't been done because that has been just a perennial underachiever program. But it ain't this year. It ain't this year.
He's gotten to work under Mike Elko, Bill Snyder, and Chris Klieman, all three.
Yeah.
I'd say he's learned from three pretty good guys, hasn't he, from who he played for. So that should give you a lot of confidence and, what Collin Klein is and how he's viewed, et cetera. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to monitor who's going to be a part of Collin Klein's staff.
Yeah. On that note, I would just I'll throw one name out there for a potential Collin Klein staff, just because I think it's fun to think about it, and we've crushed special teams all year. Stanton Weber.
Yeah, I'd imagine that's probably going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. How about that? We're not going to get into the weeds of everything, but that's a fun one to even think about right now, and it makes a lot of sense. They were roommates when they were players, I think.
Yeah, I'd say that is a lock. Stanton Weber, Toledo, number 25 nationally in the FEI rankings for special teams in 2025, number 9 in punt return efficiency, number 5 in kick return efficiency, best team in the MAC in special teams overall. They made a big jump from last year. He spent 2 years at South Carolina. They ranked number 1 in nationally in FEI rankings of special teams in 2022. They were a top 30 unit the year prior to that. During his 2 years at Kansas State as the special teams quality control coach, Kansas State ranked number 1 nationally in 2020 and number 4 in the country in overall special teams in the FEI rankings in 2019. Number 1 nationally in kick return efficiency in 2019. Number 1 nationally in punt return efficiency in 2020. Stanton Weber, welcome back to coaching Kansas State special teams. You're going to get this thing fixed, and we're going to watch Kansas State house kick returns again. What a sight it will be.
John won't have to besmirch Nate Kaxer anymore.
Over under 4.5 special teams turnovers next year.
Under.
I believe they're going to hit that under.
Okay.
Yeah. Zach Hansen's
okay. Because to be clear, anyone just tuning in, it was over this year. It was over 4.5 special teams turnovers this year.
Yeah.
We'll get to other staffing stuff, and in the meantime, Cole and John, I'll have you covered on Patreon, and I'll have you covered at K-State Online. Subscribe to both.
Yeah, good time for that. Patreon.com/3maw. We've even got more content coming out here on the channel. If you're interested in the recruiting class that K-State signed today, 23 people. National Signing Day show posting tomorrow morning with Kevin Flaherty, Ryan Wallace, who do a great job here talking about everything local recruiting. Love those guys. So you get a good breakdown from them as far as that goes, because, you do have to feel a little bit for some of those kids who signed. Their shine has been stolen a little bit by everything that's going on here. So.
And you do feel like it was hard, like seeing the social media post, John, with the staff, like the assistant coaches on the phone with these kids and like having to hold things together, knowing that a lot of these guys are going to be out of a job and have to be looking. Like you feel for this.
Yeah.
It's an industry. These are human beings with families. and they have to figure out next steps. And they had to fight and claw to keep this recruiting class together with all this turmoil going on and change. And shout out to Taylor Brad, as always,
Taylor Brad sounded like a head coach up there at the podium today, man.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Taylor. Did a heck of a job at the press conference for those first.
Oh, he's really good at that stuff. You know how much practice he's had? The way he does those like catbacker events, alumni events, like that's his wheelhouse, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but he's come a long way, and he and I have talked about this a lot. He started coming on the radio. We would do like a signing day show back in the Snyder era, where like Snyder used to not even let him come on. And then finally he let him come in with Sean one year. I don't know. It was maybe like 2014-ish. Taylor, he was scared, man. He was not ready to be on the radio, and he improved so much. And like to see him, that was kind of a proud moment, man. I was like, I'm proud of Taylor. He has turned into, he's a stud, man. He was crushing it up there at the mic. So
I do feel bad for him in situations like this. And you guys are probably wondering, like, what are you talking about? Because I was starting to put myself in his position. If you're Taylor Bratt, you're Mr. K-State, so to speak. Like, you probably aren't going to be worrying about having a job, but everybody else, every other coach in that building is right now. And I can imagine it's hard for him to walk around Veneer because they're all looking at him like, you lucky son of a bitch. You're the only one that's definitely safe.
Yeah, I would anticipate Taylor's close with Collin and those guys, and Taylor.
No, to be honest, it's kind of like those other schools that talk about. There's one or two guys that just stay through every coaching transition. For LSU, I think it's like Corey Raymond and Frank Wilson that just end up under every single freaking LSU coach, no matter how many times that they change coaches. Taylor Bratt is that to K-State. Like, you have a hard time succeeding at K-State if you didn't have Taylor Bratt on your staff. And
I should say it's not because he's close with Collin, obviously, but I think any head coach that comes to Kansas State is going to want to retain Taylor Bratt. He resonates with kids. He loves Kansas State.
He's an encyclopedia on Kansas high school football, and you have to have one of those.
And he'll work his ass off for Kansas State, and he loves.
But like for him right now, like he's kind of. I'm sure he's getting a little side eye from some of the other coaches that are probably like,
And I know we're wrapping, DY, but just one quick question here.
Cole, I got to go, buddy. I got to go. Let's make it quick.
I was just going to ask. So, like with Klieman now retiring, like the transfer portal window doesn't open until January 2nd, but these guys for K-State can enter the portal now, starting now, right? Because of the coaching change.
I don't know.
I believe a coaching change institutes a 30-day immediate window, but the transfer portal window doesn't. We'll have to check on that because January 2nd is maybe because the portal hasn't even opened yet. There isn't a special like portal window because they're still going to be.
I have not seen notifications of a ton of guys leaving at all the places that have had coaching changes. So
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, me either. What I will say is I was told, obviously the bowl game thing, like about players, what they want to, is also told there's uncertainty because all the coaches that you might need for that bowl game are going to be trying to get good jobs right now too.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We got to run. Thank you to Holiday. Thank you to Alenko. Thank you to Nick Springer making this happen behind the scenes. Thank you for hanging out, everybody. We appreciate all of you. And take care. We will see you we'll be talking to you soon on 3 Ma. I promise you that.